Welcome to Detox and Beyond. Detox and Beyond is a new podcast that we're starting now. And this podcast will explore everything about natural health. We will have talking heads, we will have encounters with different people, different coaches, different experts in different fields. And we're going to get into conversations in order to share education, information, something that could help you on your journey. But this time, we will do something a little different. Just to get started, what I want is to introduce you to the team members, and to talk about their own personal journey, their own personal struggles. We want to show ourselves a little bit vulnerable to get started because that's what healing is about. So, what are their challenges? What are they struggling with? And also, why they joined ZenCleanz. What I've been noticing in the last couple of decades is that more and more professionals are seeking meaning and purpose into their career, to intertwine their work and their own personal development, which I think makes sense as we spend so much time at work if we can bind it together. So I want to show you that the journey is not about perfection. It's not that we've sorted it all out, but it's a journey. It's a process. It's a trial and error. And that day after day, we're making changes. We're cultivating through the choices we make. So I'm excited about sharing the stories of the people behind the scenes. And I will add to that my 40 years plus experience as we talk, as it may be relevant. So I hope that this will inspire you on your own journey, and see you there. We will have a few episodes where you're going to meet the team. See you there. Alice from Italy, thank you for coming, and also thank you for accepting this invitation to share a little bit our journey, which is oftentimes we think is very personal. But my assumption why I decided to create those is to show that the ZenCleanz team is engaged also. It's not like we sort it all out and we're done with it and yeah, I'll tell you what to do. This is not how it works. And we are in it, and it's a constant, never-ending journey because health is a path. It's not like something we achieve, it's something we walk more. So I want to dig a little bit into your, I should not say short life, but you're young, but still, how did you become health conscious? Did you start with some health issues, or it more about following a trend, or because this happens more and more now, it's a kind of a cool thing to, like, health is a new sexy, we say.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
somehow, so how did it all start for you?
Yeah, thank you for having me, first of all. Super
Yes.
excited to have this
Yeah.
conversation. So I'm 26 now. I would say that I started being more conscious of my health around 6 years ago. And I was actually thinking of this just today. I do have to give a shout out to my ex, who was a fermentation guy. And I remember when I met him, I was not that connected to my body, to my health, to the way that I was eating. And being with him, I started noticing a different way of approaching food, where it came from and how it felt in our body. I learned a lot about the gut-mind connection. And as I started exploring that, I realized how much better I felt. And that's really what became my North Star, just simply how I feel in my body and realizing how big of a difference it makes, and to know that it's not only good for your body, but also for the earth, the way that you choose.
Are you saying that already 6 years ago, you were eating and feeling? You were kind of noticing the change, like being already aware that yeah, it's like different medicine, right? Take different medicine, have different effect. Wow. Okay.
And then I think that it was my journey with endometriosis also specifically. So maybe I can mention just to make it explicit what it's about. So the endometrium is the inner lining of the uterus, and endometriosis is a condition where your body tends to create pieces of endometrium-like tissue outside of the uterus. So it can create cysts and stuff. And it has to do with chronic inflammation. And I've been on a journey with that for 8 years, more or less. And so it really came down to my lifestyle. It was not about a pill or a new contraceptive method or any other short-term quick fix that they were trying to give me, but
You were
really
not in that.
I was
Or
at the
you were at the
at
beginning.
the beginning. I was prescribed the birth control pill, and then in those years I started becoming more aware of functional health, I would say, and then also having a desire to be more connected to my natural cycle and seeing how I could support my body to do that without taking hormones, without suppressing my inner rhythm,
Which cycle are you talking about?
the menstrual cycle.
Menstrual cycle.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so that was a big driver, and I could see how deeply connected to my emotional state my symptoms were. So then it also,
They were worse into your negative state.
yeah, I noticed my inflammation was very psychosomatic. And so really working with my nervous system was a big part of it, because I would have more cysts when I was more challenged on a nervous system level. And as my condition would get worse a few years ago, then I really made a decision to become even more committed to my health, although I would say I was already quite conscious. And the big focus was nervous system and tending to my wounds, to my pain. And my body responded so beautifully. And so trust.
Are you saying that in a negative state of mind, you were making cysts, and in a good state of mind, the cysts were going?
Yeah, which,
In a short time.
yeah, actually they said, a lot of traditional Western gynecologists would tell me that the cysts couldn't go away. And then there was literally a point where I went from 1 to 2 to 4. When I had 4, this was 2 years ago more or less, I got scared, especially because I wasn't taking any contraceptives to interrupt my cycle, and I didn't want to. So I was like, okay, I gotta step up. And I reached out to a functional medicine practitioner, so went deeper into the state of my overall health. She supported me on a holistic level. And 3 months later, I was back to 2 cysts from 4. And I think 10 months later, I was back to 1.
And now maybe you have no cyst, as we spoke.
But, well, we don't know, yeah.
You don't know, yeah, because it may shift quickly, right?
Yeah.
Uh-huh. Okay, you reached out, you got some help, external help. Is there anything that you kind of like in terms of work from the root cause? Because what I hear is like there's external input, like things that are probably involved, like supplements, or involve certain specific diet or intervention, external intervention. Is there anything that you became aware that you were responsible behind it, and that you started shifting, like working on it? Because changing habits and changing who we are is like oftentimes we answer like this, well, sorry, but I'm like that. It's like, whoop, yes, or maybe we can get stuck in that mindset. Yes, but I'm like that. You will not change me. I'm just like this, always been like this. But the way we understand health, it's kind of the consequence of the triessence being, the physical thing that we think, the way we breathe, the way we sit, the way we move our activities, the way we eat. But there's also other elements like emotional and mental. Sometimes there's thought forms that we have that are creating emotional input. I'm not good at it, or my stomach is so bad. We have wording, something like that carries power, and that really carries a vibration, right? And so how did you work on that? Have you started recently, or when did you become more conscious on this?
Yeah, so that period where before I got better, I got worse, it was around 2 years ago. Yes. So I think it was summer 2024. And I was grieving. I had lost my father 6 months before. So I was very much in that first stage. And the loss of my father came with my, let's say, forced economical emancipation, which I knew was coming either way. I was not going to be a student anymore. But it came quicker than expected, and it came with also a level of pain that obviously I had not.
Pain.
Yes, emotional pain. And a lot of fear. And I reflected on the fact that, the father figure is really the one that gives you this sense of protection, of safety. And I really felt how something in my soul had shifted as he left his body as well. And so the main worry that I had, the main fear, was really safety. So it was connected to materiality, to money, and to me being good enough to find the job that could have supported me and that I hopefully would have enjoyed at the same time, but also having a creative desire to go deeper into my calling to explore and reconnect with my cyclicality and support other women in doing the same. So all of these things were happening at the same time, where I was super scared and I felt like a little baby. But then life was really asking me to step up. And so I had to navigate this tension. And my immediate response was just a lot of harshness on myself, which didn't help. And I really feel that I got
Pushing yourself, you mean? Not
yes, but also
judging.
judging. Yeah, my inner voice was so negative all the time. Nothing was enough. And I got to this peak of, let's call it self-negativity, that coincided with, the worst state of my health that I had got into at that point. And then the biggest shift that I made was, realizing that the way I was relating to myself had to change. So much more self-compassion, which doesn't mean avoiding uncomfortable things, because I knew I had to face them and grow.
A bit of tolerance.
Yeah, just
Kind of,
acceptance and trust.
Yeah.
Trust and
giving it some time.
yeah, so trusting the universe, but also trusting myself, trusting my ability to grow. And so it's connected to the idea of responsibility, which you mentioned. And this was my biggest shifts in terms of how I relate to my health and my life in general, I think. And it has been also nourished by ZenCleanz and being in the ZenCleanz environment, which is the idea of responsibility. So responsibility literally means ability to respond.
Yeah, it's empowering, isn't it?
It's empowering.
It's not like guilty. There's a difference.
A lot of people associate
Responsible. You're responsible for that. Thank you. I would change a thing, If you're guilty with it, no, I didn't do it, right?
But a lot of people don't make this distinction. Responsible equals guilty. And if you frame it this way, you're only going to experience your possibility to respond to life's happenings, initiations, as something burdening rather than empowering. So,
Yeah. Like I hear your story and I hear it from the TCM aspect. And I look probably the death of your father feeling like the floor collapsing under your feet and kind of having no ground, no feeling of safety was, in my opinion, from me looking at the symptoms you have, was probably there before. Like it highlighted it. The death of your father highlighted it, but this, because the womb, the urogenital system is connected to the kidney energy, and the kidney energy, when it's constricted, will generate this feeling of insecurity, of fear, and it's not logical. It's just a way to be in life. Everything is filtered through that, and it's so important to tune into that, because we can know and we can process things mentally, but the true healing requires one step deeper. It requires to go and sink into it and feel it. Have you been there?
I've been learning to.
What is your journey towards that? Because you know, ultimately, the more I grew into Chinese medicine and Taoism, it became very, very simple at the end. You know, the healing thing became very, very simple. It became like reduced to one word, feeling, not thinking. Because when we feel something, it's in our target. When we think about something, there's a lot of things can happen into the blind spots, and we're not really, it's not tangible, it's mental, you know. So what is your journey to into that? I know that you just came from a voice workshop, for example, you know. Tell me a little bit what is your journey into that direction?
Yeah, beautiful question.
Yeah,
So,
a tough one. It's a
yeah.
tough one. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's like, well, you know, it's like maybe you're journeying and you're not maybe aware, you know, and so there's some steps that you're making already. But I want to hear you about that.
Yeah, so I think that as a lot of people today, I had a tendency to be very much mental and rational about everything. But because that was also a coping mechanism and a way to protect myself.
Yeah, exactly.
If I
It's
understand
control,
it,
right?
exactly. If I understand it, I can control it, and if I can control it, I'm fine.
Yeah.
So really
Yeah.
not. It's really not like that. It's an illusion, but so actually, it really went hand in hand with me reconnecting with my cycle because I noticed that there were these emotions that were coming and going, and when I was experiencing emotions that I would label as negative, I would feel so much resistance. I would create so much resistance around the emotion. I just don't want to feel this way. Why can I just not be happy and energetic and, I don't know, sociable every single day? Why do I have to confront this other part of me that is feeling low energy or whatever?
Right.
But then I started realizing, because these emotions were recurring, that if I just let them be and felt them, they would naturally alchemize themselves into something
Yeah.
else, and they would bring so much wisdom. So this is really the essence of cyclical intelligence and cyclical embodiment, and so that helped me a lot. And I actually realized that I am a profoundly sensitive and, let's say, feminine being from this point of view. Doesn't mean I don't struggle with the mind still. I tend to have both kind of in conscious.
Right. But you're aware.
Yeah, exactly. And the judging that I mentioned before was a big one. So having all of these shoulds in my head. And what really helped me and allowed me to step into the next stage of my life, I really see it that way, which coincided with me becoming part of ZenCleanz, by the way, is that I allowed myself to believe that I can experience the highest joy in this life, that we all can, that this is what we're here for. And so essentially that I'm either open to it, to receive it, or I'm in resistance to it. And I was back then clearly in a state of resistance where it was all about fear and control, and I had to predict and I had to have answers. And then slowly I just allowed myself, to feel happy without having a reason to. And actually there was this quote from a guy on a podcast that really resonated, who said, "What if you chose, because it's a choice, that you have already won?" And somehow that clicked something
There's a
for me.
power in this.
Yeah.
There's a power in this.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, there is the first thing I learned, and from my master, my initial master in medical Qigong, was to smile. You know, like it feels a little bit, when I first heard that, I say, did I pay for that? You know, it's like it felt a little cheesy, to hear that. And later, I just bound with other things. Only love heals, and love is the highest vibration. But when we think about that, look, when someone smiled to you, you kind of, yeah, you like this. So humans, we tend to have so many judgments on things because for different reasons. Education, our culture, how things should be, and also our difficulty to allow the energy to move through sometimes. Like, what do I do with this? I don't know. Is it comfortable? Is it okay? There's a lot of this, and we oftentimes say no. We say, I don't want that. Not now. Or I don't deserve that. I don't need that right now. All these things. I say, yeah, but this is your life right now. This is what it penetrated you, and it's at your core already. It's too late to say no. The thief is in the house. It's not time to close the door, right? Yeah, and the smile is saying yes, okay. It's okay. And compassion towards ourselves is kind of a smiling, like in my own personal practice, to look at this body like I look at friends, but there's many friends, There's a liver friend and a heart friend and kidney friend, Going there and smiling to them, like it doesn't matter if it doesn't feel good. I take them like the wounded child knocking at my door before going to work, I don't say, come on, I don't need you now. That you say, okay, wait, I call off, take your time. There is this thing. So I think that this allows us to take things less personal as in our journey, and allow the things to stop blocking and clogging the things, and allowing them on time, when they're ready, to start moving again. This emotion to start moving again, So do you have your version of that? Do you have a similar version of that, or is it Alice that you're talking to, or what is your version of that?
I think that it's really trying to remind myself, which is something I've learned on this journey with endometriosis, that my body loves me, because especially for the way that this condition was framed by Western doctors, it was just like this one big attack on the body. And so it created this deep mistrust in my own body.
Defensive attitude also.
Yes, right? like I have to watch out because my body might betray me at any point. Right. If I don't keep it on check or something. And I remember that I was on this online women's circle, and I heard this woman, she was going through some of the beliefs that we should change to reconnect with our menstrual cycle, something like that. And one of them was, the belief to integrate, your body loves you. And when I first heard that, I was like, what do you mean? That's not true. Or like, how? Why? Like, why would I be going?
Keep you balance all the time, every nanoseconds, right?
Yeah, but I was like, I felt like if my body had loved me, then these challenges just wouldn't have happened in the first place. But obviously, that's not how it goes. And
was punished, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, actually, working on believing this was the biggest shift.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I keep. Whenever I do this, whenever I have a few symptoms, or I'm just having a difficulty with the unknown as well when it comes to my health, I just try to remember that. And it's been amazing to be with ZenCleanz and to actually hear, read, write about it, about the fact that the body is made to regenerate itself every single day, because it's really been helping me to wire that in my brain.
What is your new sentence, your program that you're reprogramming? Do you have a sentence, something that to counteract this reaction? Because it's a habit, it's a wiring, it's a specific brain wiring that leads us to there's something wrong going, How do you frame that? Do you have a way? Did you reframe it into a sentence or an affirmation or something?
Yeah. I don't necessarily work with an affirmation in those moments, but when thinking of this topic and talking about it, it's definitely the sentence, the body's wired for self-healing.
Okay, so you have that understanding now, it's like, okay, it's like, no, this is the whole mindset, but this is not the truth. Do you believe it?
I think I do have to integrate it even more, but I also honestly believe that I like to call it misalignment rather than use the word endometriosis for it every time. So I'd like to refer to like a womb misalignment. I believe that it's actually an initiation that serves my evolution. Yeah, and I see that how also it's connected to the body's urge to create, because that's basically what's happening actually. You know, the endometrium is supposed to hold a fertilized egg and then nourish it, and
It's a creative center.
so that is the thing that makes life possible, and my body is trying to make more of it. So
It's an abused area, you know, the genitals, the sexual area, which is a creative area, which is the area where the babies and the kids work only from. They don't care about you. They haven't opened their heart center yet, and they can definitely, though they're not into the abstract and understand anything, they everything they have, they're horny for it, you know. And then they're very horny for ice cream. They are horny for sleeping over at the friends, and to go to the park and play something, It's all coming from here, and we tend in our society to control, say it's like this, you're disturbing, you're not right. So there's a lot of tensions that we're holding. It's one of the first one, and then later the energy rises, and then we end up living in the chest, But if you look at the babies, they're all, and the Buddhas, yeah, and the Buddha, the belly, they live there, and they're very sensitive. They cry, they angry, they laugh, they very, very spontaneous, This center is quite abused, suppressed over the years, over our lifetime. So definitely it's an area that we say that when we grow matter, like cysts or fibers or cancer and these things. These issue grow into empty space, into a stagnation area. It's a place where there's no movement. It's kept there. It's a little bit like the swamp, and there's the lake all there. The water is clear. People play in it, and there's the other place where there's old beer cans floating, and the beer, everything, and the frogs go there, and you shake the water. It's like, these are our stagnant areas, and what we do to restore these kind of areas, if we have this, is what? You bring oxygen, right? You bring movement, and you bring oxygen. So this is something, well, of course you were not here to receive that, but I'm just saying it's an general approach. It's like when there's something like this growing, it's a place that requires presence, more attention, just being there, and feeling how this area is breathing. It's not you go and breathe all the way down to there. This is control also. But how is this area breathing by itself? And then you get into the feeling of that area, because, if I'm sad, I will inhale more. If I'm angry, I will exhale more. So every part, the whole emotions are held into breathing patterns like that. So I would say, we need to address these places and allow ourselves to sink in and just feel. Not tell them, please change, I don't like you, because it's underlying statement, So, but I hear you, and you have already the key. Already, you identified so many important roadblocks, that you've identified. So I really trust that you're gonna be amazing. It's like, oh my God, imagine. So, wow. Yeah, thank you for having accepted this invitation. And yeah, keep an eye on you. Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you. Yeah.